Um, okay, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. Welcome. Good morning. So many of you have your camera on this morning, and I know that's because most of you are on the panel, but thank you to those who just have your camera on for funsies. It's great to see you. Yeah, thanks for coming to all these training sessions. I feel like it's been so fun. If you weren't at yesterday's, I was like so blown away by 1920s houses and how fun it was to learn about them. So go and catch that recording. But tomorrow we have Mark talking about focus. If you actually pick the sessions that Mark talks about based on just things that we chat about quite often, or like things that he's thinking about pretty regularly. And if you didn't know, Mark Nottingham has tattoos. He has 2 of them, question mark, but he's thinking about getting a third, and the third one would be focus, like right here on his arm. It's like one of his like big things that he like thinks about, and I think it's a lot about thinking about like the priority of when you do things and how you do things. So I think it's going to be great and really applicable for your life as a realtor, because I know you guys are constantly balancing like a shit ton of things. So I hope you can join for that. And then please, you mark your calendars for like the one training that I really want everyone to come to this Thursday from 10 till 12. The people from Child Advocates are going to be with us. This is all on Zoom, and they are going to be doing their presentation on interrupting racism. So I've heard it's phenomenal. I've never actually sat through it, but I hope you guys can join. Okay, sorry I have like a lot of things to open with this morning, but I'm just going to keep talking at you. So this morning we're talking about work-life balance. And we are joined by Zach Canada, Crystal White, Josh Newman, and Amy Jones is our last panelist. She will be hopping on here in just a minute. She had to drop the kiddos off at school this morning. But what I wanted to say first before we like dive into this topic is something you guys probably already know, but maybe is a good refresher, that work-life balance isn't always a balance. I actually don't really like that it's like commonly called that, because it's not always that like seamless. It's not always like this perfect balance of 2 dichotomies. It's often like juggling, or like a rhythm that you step into, or if you're like yoga, it's like a practice. So I invited these people to speak on the panel this morning. I mean, one, because I think they're amazing human beings and have something to add to this conversation, but number 2, I think they're not perfect at work-life balance, and none of us are, but I think that's why I wanted them. I wanted them to come and be able to share. Yeah, this is really hard, and being a realtor is really challenging to have work-life balance. So, oh, work-life integration, Leslie Gibson, I like that, thanks. Yeah, so anyway, I didn't invite them because they're like shiny star examples of what work-life balance is like. I invited them because they're real people and you're real colleagues who probably really struggle with this. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Without further ado, can I have our panelists introduce themselves? Can you guys say your name, your neighborhood, and how long you've been in real estate / how long you've been at Platt? Zach, I'm going to have you kick us off, please.
Okay, my name is Zach Canada. Currently live in the Kennedy King neighborhood and joined Platt Collective in 2018.
Oh yeah, perfect. And when did you join full time? It's been a little bit.
Exactly a year from now. It was November of last year, so this is my first full year.
Seriously, I can't believe it's been that long. Felt like 2 seconds ago when you left Lily. That's fantastic. Crystal, you next.
My name is Crystal White. I've been at Platt, oh my goodness, it's going on 2 years. Is that right? Yeah, it'll be 2 years in January, 5 years as a realtor. And I live in the best neighborhood ever. I live in Ladywood Estates. in Washington Township.
Crystal, I was just on a meeting right before this with the my War Downtown division, and we were like taking votes on our next committee. So we were talking about you. Crystal is going to be on our downtown division committee next year, and they asked me to like say a couple words about you because I know you best. And I was like, y'all, she lives in Ladywood Estates, and that's all you need to know. It's the best community in Indianapolis.
Mic drop, boom.
Mic drop. All you need. That's so good. Thanks, Crystal. Josh.
Hey, good morning, guys. Josh Newman. I live in the Old North Side, and I've been with Platt since March of 2018. So this March will be 2 years. I had 1 year prior with Berkshire Hathaway. So I'll be 3 years in March of 2021. It's crazy.
That's great, Josh. Thanks. Amy, welcome. Can you tell us your name, even though I just said it, your neighborhood, and how long you've been in real estate / with Platt?
Okay, I'm Amy. I live in the Southport area, South Side, in Franklin Township. I have been a realtor for coming up 2 years. Both of them have been with Platt.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so first question for you guys is, I want to know what a day in the life looks like, and not just like your realtor stuff, but like Amy, for instance, like you take the kids to school in the morning. Like I would love to know like what your actual day looks like from top to bottom. So Crystal, I'm gonna have you go first this time.
Of course you would have me go first. Rosie. Oh, I just had this discussion yesterday. My days look very different day to day because I share my amazing 10-year-old son with my ex-husband. So it just depends on what day I'm sharing. But so I take like Amy, I just took him to school this morning. Some things that are consistent with my days is I 9 times out of 10 always start the day with some crystal time. And it's like,
can we all start our day with some crystal time?
That
sounds amazing.
Everybody needs to start their day with crystal time. Rosie, stop it. I'm trying to be good and be professional. So what I mean by that is I typically start with gratitude. I journal in my gratitude journal often, like pretty much almost daily. I read a little bit and have a little bit of spiritual, a little bit of meditation time, just because I've learned being self-employed for so many years that if I do not get my head straight and if I go into the day kind of open, I feel like I can just be blindsided by so much stuff. So I try to get my emotions in my head together before I start really get into the day. And then from there, it can vary with what I decided I was going to do the night before. So I always try to decide, I kind of know what my day is going to look like the night before I write it out. So that's dropping my son off, picking him up, working. So, you know, the other stuff realtors do. And I almost always work out. I work out probably 3 or 4 times a week because I need that really bad. In the mornings, I make time for myself to do that.
That's amazing. Thanks, Crystal. So you, just to clarify, like the night before, you were like writing out like, hey, here are my to-dos tomorrow?
Yeah, either the night or the day. It depends on when I stop working. Like it might be during the day, it might be at night, but I typically write out. I won't say I'm religious and do it every single day, but most days I know exactly what I'm going to do tomorrow, what things I need to get done. And that kind of orchestrates my day and how it's going to flow too. What I can and cannot do and how it's going to flow.
Crystal, do you have a threshold for like when you stop work? Like, is there always like, okay, no matter what, I will always stop by this time, or is it like when the work gets done that day?
That's a good question. So I am flexible. I think that's important for a contractor or someone like ourselves, realtors. I am flexible. However, I am very, very guarded with my boundaries that I've placed. So I do not have a set time. Like every now and then, if the season is really crazy and there's, obviously there's some heated things going on, then I work till I feel like I'm going to stop. However, for the most part, I set things off really based on what my schedule is. I have a huge life and I love that. And I want to forever have that. And what I mean by that is, I have a big personality. I have a lot of friends. Like I do a lot of things and I want it to stay that way. I don't just work all the time. And so those things are very important to me just as much as anything else, So if I've got girlfriends coming over, I've got my small group meeting, then you won't hear from me after 6:30 that evening. So it really just depends. But work I'm no longer a workaholic technically.
Yes, I am going to ask you more about that in a bit. Zach, can I have you go next? A day in the life of Zach Canada. Do you run every day? That's what I want to know first.
Oh, what?
Do you run every day?
I try to.
That just sounds like, honestly, the worst thing in the whole world to me.
And this morning, try to get it out of the way, and you can just start your day. My baseline, I've kind of tried a little bit of everything. I've tried midday workouts, I've tried morning, I've tried afternoon, evening. And the thing I think for me that's most consistent and easy for me to follow is keeping that 9 to 5 life for the what do you want to call it? Just like the basic activities. So for example, like I'll wake up at 7 when my wife goes to work, and then at 7:30 I'll go to the gym, and then I'm home by like 8:30ish, and then can start my day around 9 after I take a shower. And then just try to get down all those little things, like check email, check my board listings, client sphere calls, text, email, portal stuff, check my calendar, and then that kind of opens up most of my days. So I can kind of knock out things when they come in the afternoon and just try to be proactive.
That's great. Amy, how about you? You're muted.
Sorry. My days are, they have a lot of similarities, but then each day is different. Like Crystal, we share custody of my son. So we have him 50% of the time. So that changes my days sometimes. I always start off dropping the kids off at school, making them breakfast and taking them to school. That's about an hour and a half I have an hour and a half of drop off and pick off time in the evening and an hour and a half in the morning. Because that's just our life. It's a little crazy. So my work hours I have tried this year to set for myself are between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. because I've got drop off before that, and then pick up. And then also some evenings, especially when I'm doing like showings or, I'll do that from like 5:30 until 8 o'clock. I like to be here as much as I can when my kids go to bed. And it's also a priority for us to have one meal together a day as a family. Sometimes that works better than others. Trying to be conscious about that. So sometimes if I know that I'm working, then breakfast is a meal that we can eat together. So yeah, and then usually like Crystal, in my 9 a.m. when I get home to 10 a.m. when working hours start, I try to have a good breakfast because sometimes I don't have time for lunch. And then also spend some time doing I do a gratitude journal as well. And then usually when I start work at 10, I pick the thing that I really don't want to do and I do that first. because then I feel like I'm ready to like get the day done by starting off with the thing that I'm the least looking forward to. And again, my days in that 10 to 2 window look super different. Sometimes it's emails, sometimes it's making contacts, sometimes it's just catching up with life or showings. That's one of the things that attracted me to this job, was that no day was the same and everything was kind of different. It's also one of the things that as a family we find the most challenging. My kids will tell you sometimes my life looks like life balance and work balance, that it's not work and life balance working congruently. But yeah, we're in year 2, I think we're kind of finding the groove of it and seeing how it best works for our family. And again, trying to make sure that I focus well and do my job well, but then it doesn't take away from me being a mom and being a part of our family as well, because that's super duper important to me.
That's so good. Thanks, Amy. I didn't know that both of you guys did the gratitude journal. That is like noted. Maybe something I should pick up. Josh, hit us with your day.
Yeah, so I really feel you, Amy and Crystal, on the sharing of the babes. Sometimes I feel like an air traffic controller, if you will. So I have 2 children with 2 mothers and a separate relationship that I don't have a child with. So it's kind of like Maury Povich from 10,000 Feet, but it works really well. So yeah, it's a lot on top of just like our day to day, right? So I really feel you there. It's an extra challenge that not everybody understands. So a typical day in the life of Josh, I usually get up around 6. That's kind of just like when my biological clock goes off. The first thing I do is I look at my emails, and I look at all my auto emails, and I look for new inventory that may have hit some of my searches. I get my butt to the gym, I'd say at least 3 days out of the week by about 7. Like Zach, I've tried a lot of different things, and I found the early morning workouts work the best for me. If I don't get it in first thing in the morning, I don't always get it in, and that is like working out and relationships with friends and family. Like if either of those things go to the wayside, like that's where I really fall out of balance. So I've learned I really have to prioritize those things, and just by putting them on a calendar every day and just making sure that I like get in there and knock it out, that's my best bet. So those do go on the calendar. I get in there 3 days a week right now. Workday starts around 8:30. Again, like I know a lot of y'all don't really know me, but I come from a bartending background. I really fight structure in my day-to-day, so I really rely heavily on a CRM that basically tells me what to do. So I get into my CRM around 8:30, and it tells me based on how I prioritize my people within it, who to call, who to write my handwritten notes to, who to pop by. And that's actually probably the funnest part of my day. I love chatting on the phone. My whole team can attest. I am the first person to pick up the phone and call you. I hate to text. I love the phone call. So I'll spend a couple hours doing that a day. And then by 3 o'clock, my day pretty much opens up, and it's kind of like everybody else just said. You kind of just go with the flow. It's open for showings, open for client care, the occasional, late lunch with a friend, call my aunt that I've been trying to, get on the phone for a couple of months, just whatever. So that's pretty much my day in a nutshell.
That's perfect, Josh. What CRM do you use?
So I use LionDesk right now. We've all looked at a couple of different ones, and I would say it's painful, like jumping from one to another and finding one that, checks all your boxes, because none of them will. So I use that for my general sphere. And then I work with a coaching company, and they use a CRM that's really just meant for referrals and generating referrals. So I rely on that heavily based on the way that I've ranked my past clients. So I kind of have like my SOI, like people that I've not worked with, and then I have my past clients that I work really hard, just like shake them down for referrals. So I go back and forth between those throughout the day.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing. I really feel the pain of like moving technologies or like trying to find one that fits all the boxes is just like impossible.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Okay, guys, now is your time to bitch. What makes work-life balance hard as a realtor? We're gonna get to like the positive side of this and like what we do about what makes it hard, but tell me about what makes it hard as a realtor, work-life balance. Zach, making you go first.
I mean, when I went full time, I was like, oh, I'll have so much more free time to do what I want to do. And it's like, no, not true at all. So you said like, what do I like not enjoy about it, or what makes it
Yeah,
hard?
just what's hard about it. I would also like to know, I think because there are a couple people on the call who are still working jobs, in addition to real estate. I would love to know, like, what was that like as you were working that 9 to 5 at Lilly and doing real estate on the side? What was that like as well, and why? How did work-life balance happen there?
My advice for anybody who's still trying to like hustle on the side and work their full 9 to 5 is try to get into a position where you can work not quite as hard, but still make like pretty decent money. What's kind of my mindset. I went from like a 12-hour shift to a 9 to 5 job, and that kind of opened it up a lot of opportunities for me. Try not to work at work, but I did. But it's just kind of, you guys got to put your head down and kind of just survive. It's real estate can be like the perfect addition to like a full-time job, and you can really build out both until you're like ready to make the full jump. That's what I really enjoyed about it. But the tough part was when clients need you. It's not always 5 to 6 p.m. It could be morning. It could be 1 o'clock. So just trying to prioritize time and really sticking to a very structured schedule is kind of like what let me like survive and not, just burn out in a couple months.
Yeah, that's so good. Thanks. Amy, what makes it hard for you?
For me, it's the clients that just think that you're right there all the time and that you should like answer their texts and emails immediately. I have one of those right now. She's real fun. I think that was the hardest thing for me to get used to, was just being in a position. So my first job was a social worker. I was on call 24/7. I feel kind of the same now. That I'm kind of on call 24/7. I do make a significant amount of money more now than I did then, which I'm thankful for. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things. And then also just my kids sometimes expecting like immediate gratification from like, mommy's going to show houses. Well, did you sell a house? No. I have to go back again and do it again. And they just kind of don't get that the process sometimes takes a while. So like explaining that to the kids and knowing that like they don't just like, sometimes it takes a while to sell a house, but it's a good reminder for me doing that too, that like, I'm explaining to the kids, this is how you work. Like, this is what it looks like to work. It doesn't mean that every time you go show a house, you sell one. And so those are the two things that I think I find the most frustrating. The other thing is, when I first started out, I was like, ooh, I can write emails at 11 o'clock when everyone's sleeping and then nobody will respond. And that is not true, because I was expecting everyone to be asleep and I would get emails back from the lender or the other agent. And I'm like, no, y'all are supposed to be sleeping. So then I ended up working like way later, and then I would be thinking about what I was supposed to respond in the morning. So just learning to like turn it off has been challenging as well.
Amy, what that client right now who wants you to respond immediately, what do you say to clients like that? Like, what's the boundary look like?
I'm still working on that. I don't know the answer.
It's so hard.
So I haven't really said anything to the client herself, but I have taken a step back in feeling responsible for responding. I've probably shown her I'm not exaggerating. Like maybe 20 houses. One of them was in Terre Haute. Every house is her dream house, but then we never get like she always backs out at the end. And so I haven't really addressed it with her. Maybe I should, I don't know. But really it's in my response and in my feeling responsible to respond to her in a quick and timely manner. It's not that I don't respond, it's that sometimes she wants something like right now and I'm making dinner. So I'm sorry, but it's gonna have to wait 30 minutes. And I feel like when you're new, you kind of want to have, you don't want to lose the client because you won't respond, because that happens. But then at the same time, you can't be a slave to that kind of thinking, because if she chooses to pick another real estate agent after all of the things that I have responded and all of the places I have taken her, well, then I can't really control that either. So I don't know the answer to that question. Sorry.
No, I mean, I don't think it is a question that has like one right answer. And I think you're right, like that stepping back in responsibility and feeling like, yeah, I can take 30 minutes to finish dinner and then text you back. Like it's
And
even
I
like,
do think that I have been able to say to some of my clients, like, hey, I'm just finishing up dinner. Or if they need something, I will text, and they text, I will text back and say, I promise that I'm going to get back with you, but this is what I'm doing right now. For mostly everyone else, they're very understanding of that. And just me being able to say like, hey, I'm just doing this, I'm doing homework with my kids or whatever, I will get back to you. And then when I do, nobody has ever said, no, that's not enough time, or like, I need it right now. They're always willing to give me 30 or 45 minutes or whatever it is when I do get back to them, because they know that I will. So.
yeah, that's fantastic. Josh, what about you? What makes work-life balance hard as a realtor?
Amy, I feel you so deeply on those pain in the butt clients. They're the worst. So I've done a deal with Amy, and I think we're really similar in the fact that we have a finite amount of energy and we graciously give it away. But then we get that one client that just sucks energy. And by like noon, you're exhausted, right? Like I've had those people, and the worst is when you end up with a couple of those people. So like I've definitely had to set some boundaries. The best way that I can explain like being a new agent is like, envision yourself coming out of like a cave, right? You've got like a spear in your hand and like you're hunting for your food every single day. Like you have no business. You're basically homeless. You're poor. You're just trying to figure it out, right? And so like you'll throw your spear at anything. Like literally anything sounds like a good idea, and it turns into all these dead ends. And you learn so much through that experience. And through that experience, I definitely learned that, when somebody's going to really like waste my time, like I become aware of it way sooner than I once did. So I know when to just kind of cut the cord on those folks. And then when I realize that somebody's going to be a time zap, like if not ahead of time, like I'm starting to do it ahead of time now, where I'll say, hey, I'm always available, but I do kind of have business hours. I do have a life. I have children. I have a family. I have a life. So, kind of, between 8:30 and 9. But if you call me, I will always prioritize a phone call. I know it's a big deal, but a text, I'll get back to you within an hour. Like Amy said, I think a text to a client that, has a question, if it's going to be a while, just say, hey, I'm on the road. That happens often. I'll get a text when I'm on the road, and then it gets buried in the, sea of text messages that, come after it. Like, hey, I'm on the road. I'll get back to you in an hour. Like, okay, cool. So I think it's just, for me, it's just realizing that, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to overwhelm yourself. And, everybody realizes that we are humans, and, just be a human to them and they'll be a human back. So, you don't feel like you have to be Superman or Superwoman. That once I kind of figured that out, life got a lot easier, and it took me a while, way too long, unfortunately. But yeah, that's me.
That's so good, Josh. Thanks. Crystal, what's hard about work-life balance as a realtor?
Well, if I was being completely transparent and honest, it's other agents who have tainted the expectations to clients in our industry, that we are always busy, and that and I get it. I mean, I'm not mad at the other agents or anything, but I do wish we had more agents that had boundaries and the confidence to you know, set boundaries so that it's it's not an expected thing that you should be able to reach your realtor at all times, because you can't reach me at all times. I'm not available. And so that's not a problem for me. It kind of irritates me a little bit. I mean, I'm human. I can get kind of sucked into that expectation, but um, it would be pretty cool, just like a bank or anywhere else, like their set hours. You know how people know you expect things, so you don't get mad when you go up and it's not open. So obviously we would never have it that set, but it would be nice. That's probably what irritates me a little bit more than anything, is people have said, I don't think realtors set enough healthy boundaries for themselves. And so it is not expected from, you know, clients expect you to be available because that's just what they've seen and what has been the norm. So
Yeah,
that's my thing.
that's so good. Okay, so this next question has some specifics for each person, because you all have gone through a pretty definitive shift in your business since starting. So Josh, first one's for you. I've been like going over everyone's real estate numbers, which I typically don't do except for one time of year towards the end of the year celebration, where we're trying to figure out like, how do we celebrate you guys? Josh has gone through like or has just had an amazing growth in his business this year. So Josh, I want to know, I can't even remember like where you were at this year, but I know you're like around 8 million this year. How does that work? Like balancing so much more business. Have you felt like overwhelmed with that? Like just like walk us through what that shift in business has looked like.
Hustle. It's honestly, I felt like a chicken with my head cut off most this year. I think like most people, um, I have no idea where I am. Every once in a while, somebody will be like, "Wow, you're selling a lot of stuff." It's like, yeah, it's working out, you know. So I'm a nerd. I'm a numbers person. So for me and my business, like I want to know like how effective or what my rate of return is on like anything that I do. So what I've really done over the last year is I've gotten really intentional on all of my daily activities. I pretty much know how many phone calls I need to make to get a good lead. I know how many times I need to contact somebody in my sphere before they send me a referral. And they're not hard numbers, but I mean I have a good enough sample size now where I just know that if I keep doing what I'm doing, like I'm gonna be able to continue to scale my business. It's That's really all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything, you know, special. Just it's like I said last year, you know, I was within my comfort zone of you know, kind of flying by the seat of my pants, really lacked structure. A big reason why I joined the Clayton team is because Natalie had phenomenal structure and I wanted to learn from that. You know, I am the type of person that is I don't like to learn new things. I want to learn from somebody, right? So Natalie and the team has been a really great influence on me and my business. And I've taken tidbits from everybody. And now my business has totally changed, and I think it's scalable, and I understand it too. I only do things that are going to move the needle, and I think that takes time and tenure as well. You know, and I think everybody on the panel, we're kind of all at the same point. Like we've spun our wheels doing a lot of, you know, silly things that don't work, and now we know what moves the needle, and that's why we're all kicking butt this year.
Yeah. Josh, can you, I know those phone calls and like touches to clients will all be different for everyone, but do you mind sharing what those numbers are? for you, like about how many phone calls, how many touches?
Yeah. So over the course of a year, 40 touches. If you make 40 touches to everybody in your sphere, approximately 1 in 7 will result in a referral that will close. So my goal is just to pretty much every action. I'm like, pull up my, what's your number, man? You know, like I'll text you. Then I text to my contact, and I'll reach out every once in a while. Like it's super chill. Lost you for a second. It's super chill. I don't like to be the salesy guy. I've called for sell by owners. I've called expireds. That's actually kind of where like this motivation came from. Like I love talking on the phone to people. I love chatting with people, but I really don't like talking to people that don't want to talk to me. So expireds and FSBOs were not my thing. Chatting with just people that I've met and just building relationships, and they're happy to refer me. So yeah, the numbers 40 touches over the course of a year should result in 1 referral in every 7 people that you've got in your SOI.
That's great. Thanks, Josh.
For sure.
Okay, this question for Amy. I feel like I've seen your like mentality shift a bit from year 1 to year 2, or like even as you were talking about like, oh, I like have found my groove a little bit more in terms of like family life and work life in year 2. Can you talk a little bit about how that has shifted for you?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest strengths and also one of my biggest downfalls is that I'm a super self-motivated person. And so I don't really rely on outside motivation to have me do anything. I will usually motivate myself better than anybody else can motivate me, which is great. It's also exhausting because I have really high expectations for myself. And so when I can't meet them, or when I feel like I am not able to accomplish those expectations, I become very frustrated. And so one of the things that I've had to, I feel like I've had this realization many times over my life. But again, as I started a new career in real estate, so a little bit of background. I went to real estate school. I got remarried. We built a house, and we incorporated a family all in the same year. And so the expectations for those things and me wanting to do them well were exceptionally high. And so I've just had to allow myself to fail, and then realize that it's not really a failure if I can learn something from it. And if I can do something better on the flip side than I did initially. And that's really hard for me. I don't enjoy that feeling. I really don't love it at all, but I think it has been a good learning experience for us as a family, and also for me personally, and then also for my kids to see it happen and know that it's okay that you don't do stuff like the way that you think you're set out to. Sometimes you have to like figure it out along the way. And now I've lost track of the question. I think, so just really setting my expectations to still be high, but to understand that if I don't meet them, it doesn't mean that I'm failing as a human. It just means sometimes things didn't go the way that we planned for them to. I had like a super big goal for this year. I'm still not giving up on it entirely, but I don't think that I'm going to quite get there. But I have worked harder this year than I worked last year. I've learned so much more. And there have been so many good things that have come out of it, even though I didn't maybe meet my sales goal, or haven't yet met my sales goal. And that's okay. I still made exactly the amount of money that I wanted to. And that's really my priority. Is I want to do what I do really well. The money, I don't ever intend to make millions of dollars doing real estate. I don't feel like that lifestyle and my home lifestyle can equally exist together. So for me, it's just making enough to get by, and then everything else is a bonus. And just keeping that in mind that, it's hard in this hustle as a mom with 2 kids who are at school and sometimes at home in 2020. And so it's okay to set the goals, and it's also okay to learn from not achieving them rather than just being so like driven that you lose sight of all the other stuff.
That's so good, Amy. Thank you. Crystal, this question for you. We've talked about this before. Crystal and I share a lot of common knowledge about Mary Kay. If you guys don't know this, my sister is very high up in Mary Kay and has the car and, you know, all the stuff. And I think their methodology about work-life balance is like pretty different than how I want us to think about it. But I think, Crystal, you had quite a lot of that realization as you were moving from Mary Kay to real estate. Can you tell us about how work-life balance looked different in Mary Kay versus real estate?
Good question. Honestly, there's a lot of industry to industry, there's a lot of parallels actually. I've changed since I've left because I was on all the time with Mary Kay. Like I didn't have a day off for I don't know how many years. So I was just always on and driving around towns, annoying sometimes in Indy, but I literally had a whole territory in Ohio. So I was every other weekend supporting my organization in Ohio or driving to South Carolina. So it was really, I was really a crazy woman. But for me, the difference with here, I've changed, and that is setting clear boundaries and not, there has to be an off. Like there has to be an off. So for me, setting those clear boundaries and what that looks like is, and I did learn part of this in Mary Kay and shared that while coming over here, is very rarely will I ever ask a client, well, what's good for you? When are we going to meet? Or you can call me anytime. They can certainly text me anytime, just don't expect me to respond to you back to you anytime, because that's never going to happen. However, I give them options so that I don't feel like I'm telling them no, but I give them what my options are. You know, what's good for you? Do you prefer evenings or weekends? You know, if they say evenings, well, would Tuesday or Thursday work for you, instead of when should we talk? And so that was huge for me because I wanted to take control of Crystal again. And like I said, I'm a recovering workaholic. Don't ever want to go back into that again. It's too heavy of a price to pay, that one I'm not willing to pay. So hiring out help was a big thing. I did it then. And I do it now, you know, things that I don't love to do. I think it's okay to hire. If you don't love to do it, you don't have to be the one doing it. It's great to delegate. It frees up time. Obviously, you may not like your husband or your significant other today, and you may not want to kiss them, but that's not something you delegate. You know, you should be the one to do that, right? So, but things that don't bring me, what I use as a litmus, things that don't bring me joy, and I don't have to be the one to do them. So I am anal. I'm a neat freak. My house is always clean, but I don't mind hiring, and I've had someone clean my house for the past probably 12, 15 years or so, because that is something that does not bring me joy, but I have to have a very neat, clean house all the time. You know, same thing with transactions here, you know, so I like to give my energy when I'm in something. I want to be in it. And when it's something that brings me joy, it fuels me. Like Amy said, it's a motivator for me, like an internalizer. So just really guarding my setting clear boundaries, and I accept those expectations during my consultations too with my clients. Seller list. I do not go in and tell people I'm always going to be your friend. If you're looking for that agent, I'm probably not your girl, and I don't want to be your girl. And I'm okay with that. Like some people, that's their brand, and hey, that's cool. I am not, because if I'm having dinner and I've not had anyone have a problem with it really to my face, and don't get me wrong, I do respond quickly, and because I have to work hard at not being a workaholic and not being on all the time. But they know if I'm with you, I don't look at my cell phone. I think it's rude. So if I'm doing a showing or I'm doing an appointment, they hear my phone ringing, they know that they saw me not looking at my phone when I was with them. So they know I can only be with one person at a time. And if I am going to look at my phone, I ask for permission. And so I think people just start to learn you, and you can demand respect, I guess, if you first respect yourself and what's important to you. And I'm pretty clear on what's important to me. And so I'm okay with losing people who don't value the same things I value. It's okay for me.
Crystal, that is so good. Yeah, I feel like that's what we talked about a lot, is like how much your priority and boundaries has changed since coming to real estate. And I think that is such a beautiful thing for you to focus on. Also, having just moved in with a boyfriend who hires cleaners to come every 2 weeks, oh my God, I cannot get behind that shift more. It is amazing. It's so good. Okay, and Crystal brings us to the next question that I want to ask you guys. I'm not going to call on any of you specifically in case you don't want to answer, but do you guys set any boundaries with your cell phone? I think your cell phone, or at least from what I've experienced of realtors, it is like your primary form of working. Yeah, and this can be anything you want. It could be like Crystal says, like she doesn't look at her phone when she's around other clients. It could be, I don't text during these hours of the day, or I intentionally forget my cell phone when I go on a walk or to the gym or whatever. Like I would just love to hear if you guys have any little tricks like that help you get some rest and time away.
A little tidbit to add to that, what I discovered important for me, having a 21-year-old that's going to graduate college next month, woo, and a 10-year-old little guy that's only in 5th grade, and having gone through raising a child and raising one and what's important and not being able to get time back, some key things that I have found, I try to make sure I don't enter my house on the phone when my family's there. Now, 2020 is just a whole different ball game. That's can't even be, because my son was going to school from the house and all that kind of stuff. But I would try not to walk in like from the garage or whatever on my phone, like engaged where you can't even look at your family and say hi and greet them. I try very, very hard when I pick my son up, and back then my daughter, from school, not to be on a phone call. Like that has to be ended. I'm not perfect at it, but I'm 99. I'm almost there. Just because it does something to your children and your relationships that can become irreparable. And so that is something I would recommend anybody on here that has loved ones at home, and something that I've learned myself. It's just those little things, just setting some little boundaries in place to make the people that you love at home, that you're out there busting your tail for, to make them feel valued and significant. Because we are on our phone all the time, but it's something about those passing times that makes a difference if we're not engaged in a conversation to be able to speak and say hi.
That's so good. I think like greeting your people, like just like a simple greeting of just being like, hey, hi, I love you, good to see you. Like that means like so much. That's so good. Amy, you looks like you're unmuted. Share.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be like totally honest for a second. We allow our kids 20 minutes of electronics a day. And my daughter is 10. She's also in 5th grade. And earlier this year, she said, Mommy, how come you don't limit yourself to 20 minutes on your phone? And it was like gut-wrenching for me, because I realized that I have expectations for them that I don't set for myself. And it still kind of like stabs me in the heart, because she wasn't trying to be rude, or she was just like, well, if I'm only allowed 20 minutes, how come you're always on your phone? And I can't only be on my phone for 20 minutes, but I do have to I have after that, have done better. So I turn my phone on to do not disturb at 10 o'clock. I won't answer texts or anything like that after that. Also, like Crystal, when I'm dropping my kids off at school and when I'm picking them up from school, there is no phone. I do not have, I will not take phone calls. I will have to call you back. I always want them to know that I love them when they're leaving for school. And I always want to ask what they learned and how their day was when they get back in the car from school. We have some of the most important conversations that we ever have sitting in our cars. I think mainly the eye contact, like not having eye contact is one of the big things. They can ask me things that they wouldn't want to ask me, like straight to my face. So like I said, from 7:45 till 9 o'clock, I'm with my kids in my car. We're doing our thing. I don't take phone calls again from 2:30 until 4. It's the same thing. And realizing that once I gave them that time, and once we did like face-to-face dinner time and homework time and all of those things, then they're not feeling as defensive when I'm on my phone, when I need to be on my phone, because I've given them that contact. I've given them what they need. And it also fills me up too, because I would hate for my kids to grow up and be like, my mom was like this all the time, and that's how I remember her. It's gut-wrenching. And so there has to be a balance. I'm not great at it. I still need to be much better. But having my 10-year-olds call me out was a super reality check. And I will remember that forever. And so I will continue to try to strive to do better. But I still need to do better. I still can do better.
Yeah, that's so good. Josh, Zach, anything you want to add there? It's okay if not.
The girls hit the nail on the head. That's all really good stuff. And I admit the same things that it sounds like Crystal has really gotten really great at, and Amy's improving on. I need to do better. My son Merrick will be 8 this month. He asked me, it's been a couple months ago, he's like, Dad, when do you get off work? And it was 7 o'clock, and we're sitting there and watching a movie, and he just wanted me to watch the movie with him. He didn't want anything. He's just like, when do you get off work? And I turned my phone off and I was like, now. It's just one of those moments, like Amy said, just hits you in a spot. Or my 2 almost 3-year-old will look outside and say, no, Dad, I don't go work. Like they just want your time. And so I've definitely been much more conscious, especially this year. Like this, I think this year's just changed everybody. But I'm much more conscious of it, and I continue to strive to do better too.
That was beautiful. Thanks, Josh.
I guess one thing I try to tell myself every day is try to be mindful of time and be present in the moment. That has been a really hard thing for me to do. So that 9 to 5 administrative, I try to just get as much stuff done as possible, and then try to limit after that, unless it's like an emergency or we're writing an offer showing. It's a lot less things that I'm going to be doing after 5 o'clock when my wife gets off work and wants that time. So that's kind of how I try to balance it.
That's so good. Thanks, Zach. Okay, so we have just a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to see if you guys had any questions you would like to open up for the group. Phil, not to call you out, but you were the one that asked for this session. So if you have any questions you would like to ask, feel free to hit it up. I will only let the silence drag on for like 1 minute. All right, I can't even last 1 minute if no questions are going to be asked. Guys, any final words of wisdom to share with the group?
I would like to ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes. Oh, guys, if you don't know Eliza,
I
she's
had to get up the courage, I guess.
yes, she's one of our brand new agents and she's phenomenal. Please meet her and say hi. Eliza, hit us with your question.
Hi. So I am new, as Rosie mentioned, and I am kind of full-time by default, just with things that have happened this year. But I am brand new to the industry, and I just am trying to find ways to find more structure during my working time. And just if you have any tips on, using my time wisely during the day when I'm, working and, right now just getting started. Anyone?
That is so good.
I'm going to throw Josh under the bus because Josh, I could just give you a clean kiss on the cheek for what you shared today. But Eliza, I would honestly, if Josh was okay with it, and it seems like he's kind of got that heart that he would be okay, I would highly recommend reaching out to ask him what are some key things he does every day. Because it's good that you're looking for structure. Structure is so important, especially when you're starting. But knowing how many people, being proactive and not just sitting there waiting on things to happen, we have to create. We have to make things happen in this business. And what you do today, you may not see the fruits of it for a while, but if you don't do it, you're going to also feel it later on down the road. So finding out exactly maybe how many calls is he making, her or whomever, if you have a team leader or whoever, I think that is the key thing that we couldn't sum up in a couple of minutes, but knowing how many people to call, who to call, and setting that up and doing it every day, not just if it went good that day.
I have another thing to add on to what Crystal said. And I know it's super hard this year because we're not all in the office and we don't see each other face to face as much. But I think finding people who have a work environment or like who have a hustle that you love, and then taking the time to meet with them and ask them, hey, what is it that you do? How do you spend your time growing your business? I did that my first year. And it was so helpful for me to know, like, what is it that I should focus on? What's working for those people? Because structure and the way you build your business, I mean, I don't know how many agents we have now, but everybody has built their business probably a different way than everybody else. And so finding someone that you can vibe with, or that you, like what you see and what they're doing, and then knowing that we have such a collaborative space here and you can ask those questions and get honest answers and feedback, and hopefully support in growing your business that way.
May I? Awesome. So the very first thing that I did when I got into real estate, I had lunch with somebody that I really, really looked up to in the industry. And he said, sit down with a pad of paper and write down the names of everybody that you can possibly think of that knows, likes, and trusts you, and call them. And that's what I did. And I called them and just said, hey, it's been a while since we've chatted. Oftentimes it's been a long time since we've chatted. Sometimes I saw him just, last week because I was still bartending for the first year and a half. But just let them know you're in real estate. It blows my mind, and it's my fault when I realize that somebody that I think should obviously know I'm in real estate, does a deal with somebody else. And I'm like, hello. And it's like, I didn't know you were in real estate. That's my fault. It's our job to let everybody know, scream it from the mountaintop that we're a real estate agent, and we have to advocate for ourselves. And it's a lot of legwork the first 6 months, just making sure that everybody knows what it is that you do. And it'll be really good practice too to just be on the phone with people, get you outside of your comfort zone if that's not something that you like to do. And then you'll be really surprised at what that does for you. It's kind of just a catalyst activity, and you'll hit the ground running. You'll do great.
That's so good, Josh. Thanks. Zach, looks like you're unmuted. Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think what Josh said is key. I know some people struggle with just calling people out of the blue. I kind of did. So one I had a really good luck with here recently was just trying to add value, and the fact that I was like, hey, you have an HVAC servicer. Have you had your furnace cleaned? And they're either like, yes or no. Some people haven't heard from me, called me. If they're like, no, I'm like, well, do you need any other like contractors? Are you doing any renovations there right now? You know, just yada, yada, yada. And people just responded, just blew up. So any kind of value add, just kind of conversation starter. Another one is like, if you see high listings in your neighborhood or their neighborhood, just like, hey, did you see this? And like people respond to that stuff really well. You don't always have to be like, hey, I'm a realtor, send me a referral, you know? So always trying to like look further than that to like, what can I add to them that gets them like top of mind, I guess.
That's so good, Zach. Yeah, there's so much value that realtors can provide. Even like, I mean, going to your friends' houses, you can figure out when they bought them, and then like, you know, making a, I don't know what you like run cops on what their house is now and like send that to them. Like my friends, like I have my license, but like I'm not really a realtor. My friends ask me for that shit all the time. I'm like, guys, just go talk to these other people. They'll run comps for you. Another trick I learned, if you don't know this about me, my last job was in sales at a tech company, and I had to make a ton of like cold calls and emails every day. I get really nervous on the phone. I'm not as much anymore, but doing something with my hands while I talk on the phone, like so putting in my AirPods, doing dishes or cleaning, or even like I often have like a paper clip in my hands that I like play with. It just like kind of keeps my mind off of the anxiety or nervousness that I'm feeling. So try that the next time you're on the phone. Like if I'm just like sitting in a chair and I have to make a phone call, I like freak out about it. So hope that's helpful. Zach, Crystal, Josh, Amy, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for sharing about your life and your expertise. Everyone, have a great day. Thanks for joining. Tomorrow for Focus, Thursday for Interrupting Racism. Adios.